What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again with the Awesemo team, talking some college football DFS. It's bright and early on a Monday, and that is the beauty of bowl season. We have a bowl game today. It's Tulsa taking on Old Dominion. We're going to get into everything, but before we do, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when this and all other content goes live. Without further ado, let's bring you behind the glass and start getting into this game. So it's an interesting bowl. We have Tulsa favored by 9.5 points, 52-point total. This is moving in Old Dominion's direction. You might be able to find a +9 or a +8.5 out there. I guess I should say a -9, a -8.5 in favor of Tulsa. And that is the side I particularly lean towards if you're in the betting markets. Try to find a good number on that if you are betting. But this is going to be a really interesting game overall. Two teams we don't know a lot about, but they play really fast. 74 plays per game for both. Tulsa's a little more balanced. They have a 45% pass rate, whereas Old Dominion, 48%. And Old Dominion they didn't play last year because of COVID, first of all. And they haven't been on the slate a lot, but they're a team that took a winding path to get here. They were actually 1-6 to start the year, and then they ran the table to get bowl eligible and finished the year 6-6. So props to Old Dominion. But we're going to start this on the Tulsa side for DFS. And both these teams play fairly solid defense overall, but Tulsa plays in the better conference. They're the veteran team in this spot. They have a quarterback in Davis Brin, who's largely a game manager, but he's played well in his role this year. He averages 246 passing yards per game on 31.5 attempts. So that's something that's going to give you a solid floor, maybe a questionable ceiling unless Tulsa really racks it up here. They're implied for more than 30 points. So Brin is probably going to be a good, solid price-adjusted play here. He's not mobile, so if you're looking for ceiling performances, he does need to do it through the air. Only 2 games above 300 yards this year, but he did have another 3 above 250. So you can kind of see the upside is there with Brin. Probably just doesn't hit it as many times as some other premier signal callers, but we are talking about showdown, so Brin needs to be in play. In the run game, Tulsa usually uses 2 backs, but injuries kind of force their hand into Shamari Brooks being the lead back through most of the year. He's actually pretty cheap considering the volume he's handled. And so he worked into a lead back role over Deneric Prince. Deneric Prince is the guy that suffered the injury. Over their recent games, Brooks has 3 of their last 4 games, 18 carries or more. The one thing I'll say about this, first of all, is Tulsa doesn't throw a lot to their backs, and that shouldn't matter here. They're big favorites, but just if the game script does get flipped, Brooks, Prince, Anthony Watkins, these guys aren't really used in the pass game, but lead back Shamari Brooks, incredible volume on the ground. He's averaging about 77 yards per game rushing. That's going to be very good. The question to me is now with extra time to prepare, extra time to heal, does Deneric Prince go back to that 50-50 timeshare he was in at the beginning of the year? And I think there's a chance that he does. After he came back from the injury, he was basically just a change of pace back, and he's been efficient this year, 53 yards per game on about 10 carries. That's solid. It just dropped after the injury, so hopefully he can come back. He's a good tournament play. And one player that's really interesting to me is Anthony Watkins. He's only 3,900 on DraftKings. He was playing the change of pace role in place of Prince during the injury, and he's played extremely well. And even over the last 3 games with Prince returning, Watkins hasn't relinquished that role, and it's not going to be a major role. We're talking just change of pace touches here, but he's been more efficient than Prince on less volume. So does he play above Prince? Does he retain the role, change of pace? If you're just talking about a really cheap flex play, Watkins makes a lot of sense to me, assuming the role's not drastically different. Steven Anderson, he's going to be a little bit of a change of pace too, but I expect him to be behind Brooks, Prince, Watkins. Anderson, he's going to be more your dart throw. In that range, I prefer Watkins. Among the receivers, Josh Johnson's pure alpha material. You had Sam Crawford and Keelan Stokes to start the year, but injuries and transfers have taken them off the field. Crawford hit the transfer portal. Stokes is out for the year. So you're looking at Josh Johnson, pure alpha, and he's not expensive enough. I do prefer going to the run game over him because of game script and price. But if you're just talking about players with elite ceilings, he's averaging 12.8 targets over the last 4 games, 82 yards receiving. Juan Carlos Santana is pretty cheap in this spot, 8,700 on DraftKings. He's at target counts at 9 and 8 in back-to-back games. He's the number 2, and he's priced beneath Ezra Naylor, which is a bit interesting to me. He's averaged more targets on the year and more targets over the last 4 games. He's actually out-targeted Naylor in each of the last 2 and 3 of the last 4. which is a little bit curious to me. I like Naylor as the play, but he's kind of more GPP material, or in play on FanDuel where he's less expensive than Santana. But on DraftKings, Santana's the better price adjusted play in my eyes. This team really rotated their receivers outside of that. They usually run 4 wide, but with Crawford and Stokes injured, you haven't really seen that go to one player. I think if you're punting, Malachi Jones is the most likely player you're using at receiver. He's only had 1 target in each of the last 3 games, only 4 in the year, but he has led the team in routes run among the ancillary options. Ethan Hall would be another guy to potentially look at. He ran a little bit behind Jones, but both of them are splitting time. Not too much to talk about outside of the big 3. For Old Dominion, really interesting team, a ton of injuries to monitor here, or absences. We don't get a lot of reporting on Old Dominion. Hayden Wolf is the quarterback, beat out Daryl Mack midseason, not a rusher at all. He does require upside through the air to get a ceiling performance, but he's such a negative on the ground that he's hard to play here in this spot. Tulsa plays good defense, and he's more expensive than Davis Brin, which is confusing to me, but Wolf does have a ceiling through the air. They do throw the ball a ton. If you kind of consolidate the quarterback opportunities to one player, Old Dominion's passer is going to have the volume that you want. But ultimately, in this matchup, how does that look? I'm interested in him as a GPP option. In the run game, Blake Watson, also more expensive than the Tulsa runners, but his volume is just so good. He's averaging 104.5 rushing yards per game, somewhat involved in the pass game, about a target per game there, which is better than the Tulsa runners. But Watson's going to be functioning with negative game script. He did through much of the year, but as you can see, a lot of his volume's backloaded over the last 4 or 5 games where they did run the table. So I think Watson is a bit expensive compared to the role you might see today if they get down. Elijah Davis is a change of pace. He's going to be game script dependent as well. But Watson, I think, is fine. You can play him in the flex. You can play him in the captain. He'll be involved either way. Elijah Davis, more your tournament option. The receiving game is where I think you can really gain an edge with Old Dominion. And this is going to come down largely to injuries, monitoring, and the fact that they're projected to play with negative game script. Tight end Zach Kuntz is the target leader. He's averaging 10 per game over the last 4 and 9 in the year, but he's more of your possession style pass catcher. Allie Jennings is the downfield threat. Nearly 1,000 yards, 82 yards per game for him on 7.4 targets. That volume's recently jumped up to 9.3 targets per game in the last 4. He's expensive, but certainly in play. After that, this is where things get tricky. Isaiah Page and Javon Harvey missed the last game for Old Dominion, and we haven't had any news on their statuses. This matters more so for Page than Harvey, but you're going to need to monitor this. So looking at the potential beneficiaries, you have former quarterback Stone Smart. He rejoined the starting lineup, only saw 2 targets, but he ran around on 74% of dropbacks. That was his most involved game since week 6. So I think Stone Smart is somebody that you could look to see play in front of Javon Harvey. Again, I'm not entirely sure about this, but the one thing I'll say is Javon Harvey and Stone Smart both play on the boundary. When Isaiah Page missed time, you had Jordan Bly as his replacement. Jordan Bly played in the slot for Isaiah Page. I see him being the primary backup if Page misses. Again, only 2 targets for Bly, but again, if Page misses time, I think Bly steps up. If Harvey misses time, Stone Smart steps up. And there's a chance Stone Smart just plays ahead of Javon Harvey. What I mentioned here, they will go 2 tight ends at times. When they do, it's Dante Anthony, just a pure punt play, averaging 2.5 targets over the last 4, but hasn't seen more than 1 in each of the last 2. But hope that is a comprehensive breakdown of Old Dominion. I do think the pass catchers are one of the bigger edges on the slate, injury edge. So monitor that. Before we head out in the comment section, let me know your favorite play. I'm Matt Gajewski on Twitter at Matt_Gajewski. Thank you guys for watching. We'll be back all throughout bowl season, so make sure to check out upcoming videos. We'll see you soon.